Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to Story Hour. I am your host, Daniel Marcus. My fabulous co-host is Laura Blackwell. Laura has the night off this evening. I started Story Hour about 5 years ago in the early days of the pandemic. Things were pretty strange, as I'm sure you recall, and I wanted to just create a place where my friends and I could get together, share our work, and enjoy a little community and kind of hunker down as the soft apocalypse we've been reading about and writing about for years was rolling in. Um, Very shortly after I kicked it off, I asked my friend and colleague Laura Blackwell to join me in co-hosting. We've been at it ever since, really 5.5 years, pretty much every Wednesday. With we take off between Christmas and New Year's. This summer, we're going to start taking a couple of weeks off in August, but pretty much week in, week out, we've had hundreds, literally, of authors through these rooms, and it's been just an amazing privilege. 5 years later, things are still pretty strange out there and getting stranger, but the Story Hour is still here, and we're not going anywhere. I feel like we need community more than ever, and we need stories more than ever. Story Hour relies on a truly ancient tradition, which is folks sitting around the fire telling lies. Every week, we continue this practice. We have two writers, about 30 minutes each, narrating their own work. We welcome new writers, folks who have just sold their first few stories. We welcome award-winning seasoned pros and everybody in between. We also welcome writers from across the huge tent that is speculative fiction. So horror, fantasy, hard SF, soft FS, slipstream, weird, on, and subgenres that really are just being invented even as we speak. So we want to thank the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America for a grant which helps us keep the lights on. And with that, we're going to kick it off. Tonight, we're really excited to welcome Mar Vincent and Douglas Gwilym. And we're going to start the program tonight with Douglas Gwilym. Bram Stoker Award nominated author and editor Douglas Gwilym has been known to compose a weird fiction rock opera or two. His story, Poppy's Poppy, was a finalist for a Stoker in 2023, and Year 6 made Ellen Datlow's recommended reading list for Best Horror 14. Douglas co-edits The Midnight Zone, first edition, Novus Monstrum, a collection of never-before-seen monsters featuring greats and new talent in strange, dark fiction. He reads classics of the proto-weird on YouTube and taught at Alpha Young Writers Workshop. Put his stories in your brain at Lamplight, Shoreline of Infinity, Dark Horses, the magazine of weird fiction, Tales from the Moonlit Path, and Penumbric. Or you can listen at Creepy Podcast and Tales to Terrify. Doug, welcome back. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. It's always wonderful to be here. You know how much I love Story Hour. You guys, this is such a cool vision, and it's great to be a part of it every single time. Um, so usually Laura brings me into the horror slots. And I have a tendency to write all over the place. A little dark, though, science fiction, fantasy. Tonight I've got some weird and peculiar tales for you. Um, have a wee tiny little nugget, and then a slightly longer story, and then a wee tiny little nugget. And the nuggets go a little darker. The warm nougaty centers in the middle. As bad as it gets tonight, as far as spoilers, though, or I mean, as far as triggers, though, is probably a little innuendo in the opening tale, but I think it'd go over the heads of those who would care. All right, enough preamble. This is Andro Kari, a recipe. Andro Kari, curry of becoming. Have you always found the adage, the grass is always greener, annoying and maybe a little offensive? Are you ready to take a walk on the wild side? Do you have a soft spot for traditional curry with a surprise twist? All yes? Let's go. Andro Kari does not speak to who you are inside, but borrows the differently sexed you are in the nearest applicable dimension. Note, we acknowledge the moral gray area of taking a body that doesn't, in the strictest sense, belong to you, but really, we ask you, can you steal from yourself? You are the primary, aren't you? Ingredients: 2 cups chopped onions, 4 teaspoons chopped garlic, 2 tablespoons freshly grated ginger root, 4 tablespoons ghee or clarified butter, 1 can of diced tomatoes, 1/2 cup sugar, 2 teaspoons garam masala, 6 ounces fresh snails, 1 ripe puppy dog tail, 9 whole cloves, 1/2 cup heavy cream, 3 tablespoons finely chopped fresh coriander leaves. Method: in large saucepan or skillet, melt ghee at medium heat and add onions, garlic, and ginger. Stir regularly to prevent burning. When onions are translucent, transfer to pot and add tomatoes. For female to male variant, throw snails and tail of dog from farthest corner of the room. For male to female, sprinkle sugar with delicate touch. Dump garam masala with one swift motion from size 9 point shoe. Let simmer until opening credits of The Bachelor come on television. Add cloves and heavy cream. When strong scent, lilies for female variant, leather for male, fills the room and contents of pot reach internal temperature of 169 degrees Fahrenheit, stand on large tray and pour contents down naked torso. Start with head and work in a circular motion for complete coverage. For best results, sing My Way by Frank Sinatra, male variant, or You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman by Aretha Franklin, female. With final verse, step off tray and pour contents back into pot. I recommend using a rubber spatula to reduce waste. Add coriander to taste. Pairs well with any red. Before you get busy playing with your brand new profiteroles or exploring the slow rhythms of the sausage maker, here's a handy quick start guide. Be advised, freshly minted females, that mouth breathers will catcall, want your number, and much worse. At 40, you will be seen as old, and at 50, invisible. You will do more housework and emotional work, make less money, spend spare time removing hair, doing hair and applying makeup, bleed, give birth, die in childbirth, breastfeed, run for your life in high heels and a dress without pockets. Strapping young rookie males prepare for hair everywhere, ears, ass crack, thick hair chafes, and erections are usually not called for. Fear of baldness will haunt you until baldness overtakes you. No one will trust you with children, including your own. Die alone, die violently, die young and at your own hand. Relax. You do not need empathy or support. That feeling of need for empathy or support, you are mistaken. Walk it off. All right, I promised you lighter. This is Sock. It first appeared in the Welsh magazine Lucent Dreaming. I woke up this morning, and there's no way to say it that isn't embarrassing. I am a sock. Yesterday I was in 10th grade. Guess maybe your day's not looking so bad now, huh? To add insult to injury, as my grandpa says, I am my own sock. Not clean and folded, comfortably mated in the top drawer, but a marathon sock, one I wore running around and around the park, infused with dead skin, sweat, and shoe scum, discarded in a half-assed victory lap and lost behind the dresser. It's I've been stiffening and sucking up dust bunnies back here for weeks. If I've got a mate up there, out there, that's something. Are they pining for me? Maybe they're clean and folded, sending me warm fuzzies and hoping to see me again. Of course, there are certain advantages to not being clean and folded. In my case, I can expand and contract the stuff I've got in me in the deep down. Don't ask me why this works, but I can flop myself around like a fish on a dock. If I didn't have all that nasty, I'd be boneless, spineless, splayed and mangled like that slinky I got when I turned 10. After a little shock and a lot of experimentation this morning, I got it worked out. I contracted and released, inched my way out of my unintentional hiding place. Somehow, looking up at the towering vault of a room above me was more shocking than the fundamental fact of my new existence. I'm a roll with the punches kind of guy, I guess, but it felt like standing at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. I'm thankful I can see. Helps nothing to question the ability, but the image is textile vision. It's like the world has been unraveled and rewoven and stitched and hung in place like a big 3D tapestry. When I stood there for the first time, hanging in the air like a cobra, I looked around the canyon of my room and my heart sank. I got slammed with the feeling that the world itself had changed on me. I shimmied and shook and got myself together pretty quickly. I settled on this is just the nature of my new condition, the new way of seeing. And it sure wasn't the only thing that was different. With no hands for self-exploration, with no access to the kind of interactivity with the world I was used to, I had to take some things for granted, had to say okay and move on. Simply moving from point A to point B felt like the bare knuckle push-ups I used to do for presidential fitness. It was slow going, and at that point in my new career path or whatever, I didn't get it yet, and you've got to conserve your energy. Pace yourself. I flailed my way around the canyon, recognizing everything but feeling uncomfortable with all of it. I tried for conversation with a Lego brick. I can't believe I never noticed that they move. They sort of hop around a little. Maybe this one had been left alone too long. I found her self-absorbed and brittle. Where was that pot-smoking caterpillar from Alice when you needed him? The huddle of jeans and underwear at the foot of the bed seemed like a good possibility for a heart-to-heart. We'd been through a lot together, right? But I couldn't edge in on their conversation. All the names were ones I'd never heard before, and the talk was the loud kind that might be politics. I kept moving. What do you do when you're a sock on your own? It hit me then that while I might not be human anymore, might never be human again, being close to the humans was something. And if I could manage that, maybe it would rub off on me. I get that the feeling I was having in my gut was longing. Can't say it's a feeling I like much. What would my friends say? Nobody I knew when I was a 15-year-old boy would have a need for me now. Solitary socks get thrown away. Stinky ones go twice as fast. And, Mom, I had a stab of fear. That woman had a neat streak as wide as the Ohio River, and she'd just been saying, what was it? If I have to clean your room for you again, don't expect any allowance. Today was going to be different, of course. She'd have more on her mind than matching socks this rotation of the earth. Son missing. Called his cell phone and heard it buzzing on his dresser in his room. None of his friends have seen him. Fear, alarm, abduction. The house was an echo chamber of silence. None of this was happening yet. There was time. I thought about it carefully. It all had a certain sense and order in my head, the way you can put a bunched up blanket under a magnifying glass and see all perfect crisscrosses. It was Thursday. As luck would have it, Mom's one weekday home from the office. It would take her a little while, but she would notice there was no longer anything fitting her son's description in her son's bedroom, and she would freak, panic, lose all her shit. But She would call her friends, neighbors, and the police just as soon as she dared. That was the worst feeling yet. My mother would not be sorting socks today, not with all her shit lost. I should have been happy that this gave me time, not getting thrown down the laundry chute today, but it just made me feel more lonely. I couldn't shake the feeling of the big empty place. It was too much like the hole right down inside me, the damned longing. I wouldn't want my friends to hear this in a million years, but I wanted to be in her arms again. And if that wasn't possible, I'd settle for being in her hands. I wanted to be held by something warm and human and complicated, something woven so tightly you can't see the spaces between. I'm a sock. The thought came at me impulsively, began to hammer at me, gently at first. All socks have mates. There is someone out there, maybe as close as up there in a drawer, like me, for me. I'm not a complete misfit. I have friends. I even sort of had something like a girlfriend for a while, but it always seemed like she was pulling away just when I was drawing close. That drawer up there, it was a new sort of hope. It made me feel warm in a way I'd never felt before. I thought of my mate up there, how they were like me, how they were made for me. I didn't know right then if I could ever feel quite hopeless again. Bam, bam, crack. A series of explosive wooden sounds enveloped the room. It sounded like a pine forest in a high wind if you were 4 inches tall. I did what passes for a gasp when you're a sock. Then I did what passes for letting all of the air out of your lungs in one defeated burst. It was the bed. My bed was creaking up there, just like it does when someone sits up in it. Until now, that someone had always been me. That hit me like lightning. Every stiffness of skin, sweat, spit, the blood from that gash I got in gym class called my new body to attention. I stood up like a flagpole against the front of the dresser and held my breath. Above me, a giant boy sat up. He scratched himself in more than one place, squirmed so hard the bed creaked crazily. He pulled himself over the bed frame, stood up, and stretched. The sound that came out of his mouth was like the roar of a drowning Bengal tiger. It wasn't fury, it was just a thunderous version of that sound you make when you wake up in a body that's been still too long. The boy, the tower of boy, steadied himself against the edge of the headboard and looked around the room for a minute, disoriented. He muttered something. I was pretty sure it was the mutter of someone who wasn't used to the sound. Was this an invasion? Had aliens taken over my body? Was this the beginning ploy of a sinister plot? I hadn't tested all the limits of my new body, but I didn't think it was capable of the sort of speech people can hear. Screaming would just be screaming. I hung silent, rippling about as much as a flag with no breeze. The words, those real words he was muttering, now seemed alien to me. They weren't thin and tweedy like what a pile of discarded Levi's and tighty-whities could say. I couldn't deny their reality, but they had to rattle around in my sock brain for a while before I got what they meant. It worked, the Tower of Boy was saying. The words were self-congratulatory. I'm somebody. He went to the window with my clothes half hanging off his wiry frame, eyes wide and a little scared. He looked out there at something I couldn't see. He took one gigantic step toward the doorway. I thought he was about to disappear, but then he turned, looked back. I don't know if it was pity. I don't know if it was anything at all, but the boy, the new boy, the boy tower, came back, plucked me from the dark space beneath the dresser where I'd flopped when he'd looked my way, scooped me up with a gesture more ginger than anything most 15-year-old boys have ever had in their arsenal, and popped me unceremoniously into the top drawer. His footsteps receded. I took a deep, soundless breath, and then I called out in the new dark of the closed drawer, all tweedy and simple and cross-hatched. "Are you there?" I asked. "Are you there?" I said again, pouring hope into my new voice. Silence. And then a voice like knotted silk. "I'm here." As a wee finale for you, assuming we're not run out of time here. Okay.
No, we're good. You have a little more time.
I have a little piece that was just printed in the science fiction magazine Shoreline of Infinity. It's an itty bitty little tale. As I promised, all the light and nougaty stuff is in the middle. So here we go.
Cool.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna throw another little thing out here. So my buddy Frank Arito and I, at the beginning of the pandemic, when you and Laura were thinking good thoughts and doing good things, got the crazy idea that we were gonna write stories that would fit on posters and go all around the city of Pittsburgh and put them up in bus stations and anywhere there was a corkboard.
That's actually
And
awesome.
it was a lot of fun. And the strange thing is all of those stories sold. Like people, they like the tight little tale, one of them sold like four times. And this is the last of them to sell to Shoreline of Infinity. It's called "Yeah, You Come Here." You think it's a coincidence that this same poster is on every south-facing corner between here and what you think is your mother's house? Past the house where the dogs bark a little too loud, the comfort place, safety. Catch up with the old woman, learn the neighborhood gossip, get a piece of pie or pineapple upside down cake, freshly baked. And you're brightening her day, right? You think it's a coincidence this same message is also in your Facebook stream, links to it on Twitter, Instagram. Do you think it's a little strange after the direction things went for so long? Heightened tensions, embargoes, bad things in the works, and then what? Regime change? You really think the right and the left are so different that the world changes like that? No growing pains? No struggle? The Great World Religion Conference, all that kumbayaing and popes and rajas and Sunnis clapping each other on the back. Everyone got nice, got very nice. The bad dream of a president long gone? Well, listen up. I'm only going to say it once. The path the world was careening through space at, a path of world war and climate change disaster, tsunamis and cyberbullying, presidents shooting randos in the street, it happened. Bullseye, slam dunk, not even any net. Don't listen to me if I tell you the world is gone. I don't know that. Just because everyone I knew in life is gone doesn't mean there's not more out there. The infrastructure, you see, is gone. I'm a woman like you, hunkered in an experimental, franchised VR medical facility made for quadriplegics to walk and talk in their minds. And I'm watching you, poring over you like you're a petri dish, keeping a terrarium, keeping you safe like a baby, swaddled in delusion. If you're reading this, you should know Randy says we're done. The power will be kaput before the end of the week. All this niceness, the thoughtful boyfriend, your clean bill of health, that perfect nose of yours, friends, all of that is about to close like a browser window. I want you to know that it was never a chore. It was a job I loved, a thing I did because I wanted the world to grow straight, to be strong, to be filled with love and peace and happy endings. But there's a real, honest to God pack of wolves out there, and it's time to move on. Get on your feet and come if you can. All right, that may be the darkest story I've ever written now that I think about it.
That was awesome. Thank you,
Thanks,
Douglas.
Daniel.
Man, I loved all three stories. The second one in particular, but it sounds like something. I wonder if it's like almost making a bet with yourself if you can like write a great story starting with the goofiest premise you can think of. And completely successful. It's a really terrific story. But
Thank you so much, Daniel. I mean,
um,
that is somewhat true. I firmly believe like the most interesting fiction, the fiction that gets me captivated and wanting to follow through with writing it, will swing for the fences and go as wild
absolutely.
as humanly possible because what really matters to me is the psychological fidelity of the tale,
Yes, of
the humanity of the tale.
course.
And hopefully there's always humor in there because humor equals humanity as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Um, Douglas Gwilym, folks. Uh, Thank you so much for coming back, Douglas. You're welcome back anytime. It's our custom here at Story Hour to just pause between authors, take a breath, chill for just a moment, and sort of cleanse our mental and emotional palates and just get ready for the next author. So y'all can do what you want. I'm going to just take a breath, take a moment, and I'll be back. I'm not going anywhere, but I'll start again in just a moment. Douglas Gwilym, folks. Thanks, man. Um, as a fine art professional, Mar Vincent has wielded katanas and handled Lady Gaga's shoes. As a veterinary assistant, she's cared for hairless cats, hedgehogs, and once a coyote. As a writer, her short fiction can be found in Analog, Strange Horizons, Escape Pod, and many other publications. Mar is a reader for Interstellar Flight Press and Diabolical Plots, and a graduate of the Wayward Wormhole Writers Workshop. Mar resides in the Pacific Northwest and can be found on various social media at Mar of the Books. Mar, welcome to Story Hour. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Daniel. My first story that I'm going to read today, the little one, is called Everything We Lost in the Apocalypse.
Can I ask you to lean into the mic a little bit?
Yes.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This first story is Everything We Lost in the Apocalypse. This story is about fridge drawings and photo albums and vinyl records and video game consoles and sewing machines and reading nooks and koi ponds and board games and polished rocks and bone china teacups and pool tables and family recipes and report cards and surround sound systems and bronzed baby shoes and houseplants and string lights and bird baths and barbells and tree houses and yoga mats and hammocks and stuffed animals and mountain bikes and vending machine prizes and sterling silver jewelry and college degrees and handmade sweaters and seashell collections and Christmas ornaments and hiking gear and heirloom rose bushes and bifocals and books and books and books and oil paints and watercolor paper and dream catchers and flat screen TVs and locked journals and garden paths and souvenir shot glasses and pop star posters and rocking chairs and Employee of the Year awards and friendship bracelets and wedding mementos and raised garden beds and cosplay outfits and espresso machines and makeup palettes and lava lamps and tulip bulbs and fire pits and softball trophies and spice racks and electric guitars. This story is not about us. All right, and for my second story, this one is called Prostheses. It does have a content warning for violence, killing, and there's self-harm and self-destruction involved. I remember when I got my legs, spindly contraptions of piston and dark metal that propelled me overland with a rolling gait. They seemed, in those first few days after I woke to find them grafted to soft underbelly, as unfamiliar with my weight as I was with their motion. Now, for the first time, I could walk and run. I could scale rises and stand tall at the edge of the amniotic sea where my inferiors rolled and tumbled in anonymous proliferation. I preened on the shore where they could look up and envy me, as I'd once envied the enhancements of others. Though I had no recollection of the grafting, I'd seen the superlatives on occasion. Gleaming shapes of sleek, lacquered carapace who had surpassed water and land to propel themselves soundlessly through air. Hard to believe that they were built of the same soft, pallid flesh as us. But instinct told us this was true, just as it told us that they were the greatest form we could hope to achieve. Rippling air bladders kept them aloft and directed their movement as they surveyed the land and sea below for those worthy to be lifted up from one place to the next. The enhancements they bore, visible and invisible, served as both a reward for greatness and source of greatness at once. It seemed like a religious mystery, arcane and unsolvable, as I considered it from the edge of that sea. But I intended to grasp it one day with prosthetic hands of my own. I would inhabit it. The superlatives had seen my efforts and chosen to uplift me. My first step, literally and metaphorically, would be toward becoming like them. On shivering, new-fused legs, I stood tall and watched their shapes drift toward the horizon. For the first time, I saw the sky slashing mountaintops that were their domain and that, someday, would be mine. Once I felt steady on my feet, confident in my new bipedal nature, I joined a clutch of others like me, my new kin. We passed our days between shore and scrub, feeding, resting, testing one another to know our individual worth. At the limits of our territory, those who had been further uplifted used prehensile appendages, thick and segmented and whip-like, to travel amongst branches and vines. I kept one eye on them, always, for clues as to how I might progress. If I wanted to earn the skies, I had to turn my attention, next, to earning the privilege to reach and pull and climb. My scrubland equals were more competition than kin. Not all could be uplifted to greater heights, so although they allowed me to be in the herd when I first arrived, underlying currents of antagonism grew palpable. When I ran faster, they kicked seed balls and stones in my direction. When I jumped higher, they jostled and bumped me to make me fall. I did the only thing I could and strove harder. I pushed against them in turn and used the flat planes of their leg joints to springboard myself to greater heights. I turned their aggression against them and made myself greater with it. I strove in every way I knew. Persistence was a close relative of skill, and the two together allowed me to stand out. I awoke one day to know instinctively that my place was among the copses and vines. A set of 4 prehensile, lacquer-bright appendages unfurled before me, glinting with daylight over every silvered segment, and I went to find my new home and new equals, the new life the superlatives had deemed me worthy of. Once I learned the strength of my appendages, I climbed. I scrabbled past the lower branches, then the sturdy mid-branches where others who swung in pairs and groups made their homes, always climbing. I wove branches and vines into supportive structures of my own devising, and, every day, reached higher and higher for the glossy black fruits that hung above, sweeter and richer the closer they grew to the sky. Or perhaps I only sought the sky, and their proximity to it made them sweeter to me. Beyond vines and branches, a territory of hills and high grass waited, and, Beyond it, barren wastes, ridges, and cliffs. Beyond those, spires of stone and vertiginous mountain peaks. From my precarious place in the woodward boughs, I thought I saw smooth shapes of lacquered carapace rise into the sky from caves in the mountains. But my vision was still as watery weak as when I'd been born in the sea. The horizon had never seemed so far, so unattainable before then. I was a fool to believe the world so small, the realm of the superlative so easily accessible. I steeled myself, resolved to reach those mountains and make them my own. I had come this far, and I was meant for more. The number of those in my cohort lessened with every new prosthetic gained, every environment mastered. Modified metabolic enzymes to broaden and diversify digestive ability as the world opened up in strange forms, and my diet with it. Articulated vibrissae for sensing the subtleties of prey moving through earth in the wastes. Jointed claw-ended arms to more efficiently pry open the chitinous bodies of stone-boring invertebrates. At every stage, competition increased. It seemed natural enough. Those who'd attained as much as I had would certainly also have aspirations to the superlative. The need for a herd, for companionship, likewise dwindled, became vestigial to newer, stronger instincts. Alone, I foraged and slept in imagined ways to improve myself further. How would I look now, as I would be, when I earned my next prosthetic, to those shapeless sea creatures I'd once belonged among? Those who were one prosthetic stage above me slipped with effortless grace across the impossible steepness of the mountain's cliff faces. I imitated their movements, testing the boundaries of the body I possessed, even though I lacked the powerful tails that provided them balance. The closer I came to the mountain, and then the higher I moved up it, the steeper the terrain became. The further it seemed I still had to go, even after I gained the tail I so desperately needed. As I made my way back to the slopes I was built for, a warning cry caught my attention. I'd never heard the like before, but the meaning was clear. I'd trespassed and claimed territory. Before I could seek a sure way down, away, a body slammed into mine and knocked me over. I skidded down a slope, scurry and gravel screeching against my protective shell, arms and appendages flailing for any handhold and finding instead the segmented appendages of another twining my legs fast together. The powerful pinchers of another's arms scraped and quested over my lacquered back, seeking to crack it open. We tumbled to a heap at the base of the slope, and I caught my aggressor's leg joint in one pincer, squeezed and twisted it, while I fought to tear free of their hold. Their attention turned from prying at my shell to pounding on it. Every jarring strike battered fear deeper into me, not for my life, but for my prosthetics. If they were damaged. I twisted my pincher, and the joint in my grip cracked. The lower half dropped away, limp, dangling by damaged arterioles that began to leak fluid as the lifeless weight dragged on them. My opponent moved to lunge and fell off balance instead, pulled down by that ruined leg. I gathered appendages to me, pushed free with arms, and staggered away on shaky, panic-weakened legs as their limbs thrashed in all directions. Whether they sought to compensate for that leg or to come after me, unaware of the extent of the damage, I didn't pause to find out. I scaled another slope, grit flying at my inelegant escape. At the top of the slope, I paused long enough to look back on my opponent. They lay where I'd left them, prehensile appendages holding the sides of that ruined joint against one another, even as arterial fluid gushed, dark and heavy. They raised a rattling wail to the sky, a cry of despair or a plea. Only the superlatives could craft the prosthetics we relied on, and surely only they could repair the damage done. I had never seen them do it before. I checked my prosthetics that night when I was safe again beneath a rocky overhang in my own small territory. Once, twice, then again and again until I put myself to sleep with the reassurance that I was whole. A dent in my carapace was the extent of the damage. I felt it against the soft flesh of my side when I shifted or when I breathed in and out. But I was still whole enough to survive, to carry on. I'd only done what I had to in order to escape with my life. I hadn't started the fight, hadn't wanted it. Prosthetics didn't feel pain. I almost absolved myself with the thought. But to starve to death on the slopes would be a crueler death than if I'd made an end of my opponent. I'd left them behind out of fear, not mercy. The next day I crept back to the same slope, looked down to see nothing but a motionless, pale, anonymous lump. The flesh torn and cauterized, darkened and puckered with scars where prosthetics had been removed. I shuddered at the ugliness of what remained and left it behind. For days, I wandered unclaimed slopes, directionless, without drive or focus. The superlatives moved overhead, their silent shapes a reminder of my purpose, and yet I had no desire to prove anything to them. If I'd managed to get away from my aggressor without damaging their prosthetics, they would have lived. I'd be able to continue my ascension unhindered. Instead, I remembered the sea of my birth, the cooperative nature of that place. Together, we'd sought the attention of the superlatives. I was fortunate that I could leap higher, reach further. I was lucky that the superlatives saw me, deemed me worthy. Again and again, they had done so. And yet, how much farther did I have to go before I attained what I sought? The steeper the slope before me, the higher it seemed to stretch. An endless, impossible task to my weary eyes. Why did I want to be like them, after all? I made my way over slopes and ridges until I found a place with a clear view of the world below. From there, the horizon stretched past the waste and forest and scrubland I'd left behind, to the glint of a distant sea. Further along the horizon, another glint, then another. With dawning realization, I understood that the sea of my birth was one among many, dozens, hundreds. The summits of the superlatives were surrounded on all sides by more of the same. This truth multiplied the number of individuals I'd presumed to be my competition to a staggering degree. Every side of this mountain, every slope, was filled with more like me, and with yet others who staked territory above and below me. I felt as anonymous, as powerless as I'd been in those long ago days, except now I clung alone to the side of a mountain. No others to shelter me from uncertainty or danger. A landscape my body had never been made for. I was no more special to the superlatives than the countless others who swarmed the slopes. I wasn't a chosen individual, but an object, one part of a vast collection. I spent many more days skirting territories, scaling slopes to get views of the horizon in all directions. In all directions, I saw more seas, more like me who believed they could reach the summits, that they were destined for greatness rather than shaped to the whims of superlatives who cared not which lived, which died. It was more likely that I'd end my days the same way as my unfortunate aggressor than at the summit of the superlatives. And how many would I fight, maim, kill in order to ultimately fail? If there was no way to progress but to fight and kill, I was not made for that summit. I raised my voice to the sky, imploring an answer, but the superlatives were deaf to my call. My limbs weren't made to scale the sheer cliff faces beyond my current habitat, but purpose and function no longer mattered. I directed my own purpose now. I sought my own summit. I climbed. From nearby slopes, others in my cohort croaked disapproval, confusion, perhaps understanding. I focused only on the function of my limbs, the groan of parts forced to move in modes they were not accustomed to. The dent in my shell pressed against soft flesh as my sides heaved with exertion, the sting of it a warning and a goad urging me onward. Limbs moved in a steady, strategic dance of grasping, bracing, pulling. The light of day gleamed off my shell and, I imagined, made me into a tiny insect scaling an impossible cliff. Until I saw another glint of light below me, a native of these heights who'd come to chase me off. I steeled myself for the inevitable, the end I deserved but hadn't expected. Then another and another, below and to the sides of me, all equipped with the same array of prostheses I bore. Not opponents, but allies. They too climbed with limbs that weren't made for the task. A horde of insects then, scrabbling upward to seek their creators. Stone crumbled beneath my hold, sending pincers flailing, appendages grasping at the smooth, flat surface. One caught fast in a fissure. Segments shrieked as the weight of my prosthetic body dragged at the appendage. Articulated joints wrenched, then popped free, revealing the delicate arterioles beneath as they strained near to tearing. It held just long enough for pinchers to gain a firm hold, clawed feet to secure themselves. That limb was damaged beyond use. I mourned briefly for the loss of a part of myself, even if it wasn't truly me. I curled it back to my body as I continued up. I wasn't the only one to slip as we climbed, but I was luckier than most. Daylight dropped to the edge of their world when, finally, I eased my shrieking joints, my scraped and battered body, up to a horizontal surface of stone, the overhang at the mouth of the high-ceilinged cave. I had almost forgotten what it felt like not to climb, to stand upright on legs that once held me tall, but that now refused to straighten fully, as though their structure had been warped on the way up. Before me, the superlatives hovered, arrayed in their ranks, silent, observing, awaiting the others who joined one after another to stand with me. An army of worn, weary inferiors, displaying ruined legs and damaged shells, disabled arms, and appendages held close or dragging the ground. I remembered a time before my legs, anonymous, formless, selfless, a time before I mattered to the superlatives. And yet, the way their faceless carapaces observed me without concern or recognition, the silence and inertia as they hovered there, I didn't matter to them now either. They did not know me from any of the others who'd scaled the cliff in solidarity, or any of those I'd left behind in the sea. We were nothing more to them now than we'd ever been. I already knew they wouldn't understand or hear my demands for an explanation as to why they selected and treated us this way. They wouldn't understand my cries. Perhaps the question itself was beyond their comprehension. Like asking one of my equals why we breathed, why we strove. With trembling, flailing arms, I reached up, found the forward joint of my shell, slipped pinchers into it on either side, the way my attacker had once tried to do to me in the heat and terror of combat. Here, it was easier by far to disconnect the piece, raise it free, set it aside on the ground by my feet, and then move to the next. Sides, back, flanks, rear. The superlatives demonstrated no reaction as I was revealed. Vulnerable flesh, attenuated muscle, scar tissue of their making. My equals remained still as they bore witness. I closed one shaky, failing pincher around the attachment point that secured a segmented appendage into flesh and wrenched it free. Pain sparked as connective filaments like jagged wires slipped and sliced through nerves on their way out. Legs buckled as the third appendage twisted free. The fourth felt like nothing at all, enhanced senses already overwhelmed by pain. If I could give back the enhancements they'd made to my senses and intellect and insides as well, I would do so gladly. I tore vibrissae from my face and head, and each one clattered to the ground like a dry, dead twig. I lay huddled on the stone floor, aware of the pool of prosthetic fluid and blood mingling and spreading around, folded up legs as I turned articulated arms upon myself. Pinchers reached beneath my body, alongside the attachment points of legs, and, as I secured my grip, it seemed the superlatives stilled further. Could they experience horror, disgust, sympathetic suffering? I would never know. I summoned my strength and wrenched myself free of the last attachments. Legs ripped from flesh in a gout of agony, and then arms as well as they raised me to the extent of their reach, higher than their attachment points could bear. With every connection severed, I dropped hard into the cooling pool of fluids, deadweight arms striking the stone on either side of me, useless prosthetics scattered all around. Boneless, formless, weaker than I'd been in that amniotic sea, I could not right myself or turn to see anything but the expanse of stone floor and wall before me. but I didn't need to see to recognize the sound of lacquered shells being disassembled as my equals joined me. Once again, I had kin.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mar.
Really
course.
loved both of those stories. The first one, when I first read it, I was really, you read it wonderfully too. When I first read it, it was just seems almost impossibly sad to me. And just a model of compression and power. Really lovely work.
Thank you.
The second story, one thing I'm kind of a sucker for alien point of view stories. I really enjoy them, uh, and the best of them, and I feel like you really kind of mastered the form here. The best of them render an alien point of view, but also let us in and allow us to sort of it reflects or illuminates something about our humanity as well. So there's this juggling act as a writer that I do when I've tried, not as successfully as you did, but also as a reader. I feel like I want to kind of get into the alien point of view, but I also am just meditating on what it means for my humanity. So really, really lovely work. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was so existential. You really felt it, and it was odd. Daniel, every time I watch an episode of Story Hour, I'm struck by the strange synchronicities between the two authors'
Yes.
choices of story.
Yeah, we don't plan this, you know.
And that tone,
Yeah.
I mean, to say nothing of the fact that it feels like both of our stories are sort of children of Kafka's Metamorphosis.
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
No, it was great. I really enjoyed it, Mara. Thank you for
Thank
sharing it.
thank you so
All
much.
right. Um, Mar Vincent, Douglas Gwilym. Thank you both so much for joining us. You're both welcome back anytime. Thank you out there for joining us as well. Um, we will be taking 2 weeks off, uh, and we will be returning on August 13th with Jordan Shigley and Daniel Brom. So please,
Yeah.
this, and yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Mhm.
Please join us and Uh, this is the first time we've tried to do this, is take a little summer break. I think we both need it, Lara and I, but um, we'll both miss it too. It's been just this constant cadence for 5 years, man.
Yeah, really.
So we're going to take a breath. Y'all can do that too, and we'd love to see you all again on August 13th. Once again, and I also want to thank my co-host Laura Blackwell, who does have the night off tonight. But would not be able to do this without her partnership. So again, Douglas Gwilym, Mar Vincent, thank you so much, and we'll see you again real soon. Good night, everybody.